You are listening to the Boss Experience Podcast, a podcast with conversations about business growth, self-development, and maintaining a mindset to achieve business success. My name is Michelle Davis, and I am a business strategist and coach, and I am your host. Let's get started. Previously on the Boss Experience. Welcome to another episode of the Boss Experience Podcast. My name is Michelle Davis, and I'm your host. And I'm here today with Troy Hipolito. And Troy is the not so boring LinkedIn guy. And we'll kind of dive into what that all means in a moment. But Troy is actually here to kind of shed some light on how to be successful with your high ticket offer. I know you hear a lot of things online about all the different ways you should be successful, and there's so many gaps. It's so easy to be misled, but I think this is an important, critical topic. That way you structure your high ticket offer, like I shared in a previous episode. And you can also learn, now that you have that offer structured, what happens next? How do I market that offer? How do I connect that offer with my ideal client? And we're going to dive into that today with Troy. So as we get started, Troy is an expert on himself in terms of like why he's not so boring and why he even has that on his profile. Because I came across Troy and I'm like, he's not so boring. Let me just kind of tune in and see what makes him exciting.
well, actually, I'm dry as toast. So I had to flip it on his head. And because I have a technical background. So before I was a LinkedIn expert, I was in IT. We made video games. I had a video game company. And so I was a programmer and a designer. And so I had a lot of different talents and stuff. And I got burned out, but we were getting clients. We ended up getting clients through LinkedIn. And so that's actually a funny story because we were doing really well and the agency crashed. And in Atlanta, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, the Fortune companies are usually very, very corporate. So Atlanta works much different than New York or LA, where New York and LA depends on the agencies, and Atlanta, they absorb an agency and they pick it apart because it's very corporate. And so our work stopped and we had to figure out how to get, bigger and better clients. And all these agencies were fighting over the same pennies. And I was told time and time again, it's LinkedIn. I'm like, LinkedIn, that resume thing,
That thing that people go on for job search.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build a business.
I haven't had a job in years. Yeah. And, and they were telling me it's really about, it's now it has over 700 million members. I don't know what it is. It's well over 700 million. It's 3 people every second join, right? It's just crazy. So it's the largest professional network. And half of the members are on it daily. So you don't have a better place for your B2B market. And so I said, well, why can't what am I doing wrong on this LinkedIn stuff? And they said, well, it's really about building relationships. And I realized I was an awful dater, like in real life. Like I have some type A traits and I see something and I go get it. And that's just how I always been. But so I never had develop some of those, old fashioned dating skills that you can apply to business. So to be like, I find this beautiful woman, I go up to her and say, and saying, oh, I find you very attractive. I want to have 2 babies with you, right? You probably get slapped in the face, right? People are doing the same thing on LinkedIn. So proper dating would be go out and meet someone and just listen. Figure out what they are, connect the dots, engage in conversation, And so there's an actual formula to that on LinkedIn in order to be successful. At the end of the day, you've heard that they want to work with people they know, like, and trust, and they get tired of hearing it, but it's true, And so there is a litmus test. Your ask has to be equal to the relationship. So if you just met someone, there's only certain things that you can ask from them, versus having that relationship go down the line. So that's one thing that a lot of individuals, they don't do well on LinkedIn because they're so bluntly direct, especially on these high ticket offers. So an IT company projects, they range across the board, but the average client I deal with, they do $50,000, $200,000 deals, right? very high ticket. So if someone is coming to you and they need a project that's different than being recommended, right? So recommendations are always the best, but sometimes you have to build relationships in order to get recommended. And that is a big thing too. So if I was really good at creating video games or 3D stuff for trade shows or whatever the case may be, just pretend I'm an IT company, and I came to someone saying, hey, I want you to give me $200,000. Yeah, that they don't know you from Adam, you know? And so again, that relationship building process really makes a difference. And a lot of people say, well, I just get referrals. I said, yeah, but those referrals will run out unless you build relationships. And some people, that's a very foreign concept. And so all this high ticket offers, it's really about relationship building.
And can I just mention something too? Some of the mistakes I kind of see people make when you talk about relationships is if you're just reaching out for the connection, please don't tell me about your business and that you want me to buy. You know nothing about what I need. You know nothing about my business. It's like, hey, I saw this in your profile. Thought it'd be great to connect. And by the way, do you want to hop on a call and let me tell you about this service that I'm selling you? And I think people want to know that they're valued when it comes down to making connections. And they want to know that whomever they do business with, that the person actually cares about their business.
Right. That you have a very good point. And there are some bad habits on LinkedIn. Let's say it like this. You remember back in school, they did the little litmus test and for everyone else, the litmus test is a little strip of paper you put in a water or chemical, and it shows the chemical balance of it, right? It's a test to see if it's water's drinkable or whatever the case may be, right? It's called a litmus test. Well, the litmus test for business, it's really simple. Would I want to go out and have a beer with you? And you got to think about that. This is during now pandemic times. I'm not going to have a beer with a creep, because I may have to tell them stuff about my business or my personal life to engage with that person. So I want to spend time with people I really want. Now, I'm not saying take them out for a beer. I'm saying if they have the idea like this guy is cool enough to go out with a beer and I can trust him with some of my, business issues and we can break the ice and go on. That's where you want to be. That's the business arena. And in order to get there, you don't want to do exactly what you said. You don't want to go and try to connect with someone and then try to book a meeting with them or try to provide a service. What you do, try this instead, is set up a meet and greet if it's appropriate and just help them. Or even beforehand, there's lots of different things you can do that's personalized. Let's say I connect with someone, right? And once I connect with someone, I will send them a welcome message, right? So I have a couple of options. I could text them back on the LinkedIn DM. I could send a voice message or a video. I always find that for me, video converts almost immediately. And the video is not selling. The video is, I really appreciate you connecting with me here on LinkedIn. I notice you're doing A, B, and C, and I find whatever it is interesting. And you're talking about that person. I said, if you have a moment, feel free to take a look at my profile. And if there are any dots to connect, you can go ahead and send me your booking link and I will schedule some time with you. So I'm not giving them my booking link. I'm not talking about me, but we just connected. It is appropriate to say, hey, take a look. It's a button click away. And if they want, they will. And if they see some dots to connect, they'll send me their booking link. So I put the onus on them. So it becomes their idea. They feel very comfortable and you're not selling anything. And then when I do have a meeting, I don't really talk about business unless they ask. They say, what do you do? Then I'll tell them what I do. But my point is just to meet them. And secondly, usually they'll book a meeting with me because they do have a problem and they'll present that issue. And then my goal is not to sell them. My goal is to fix their immediate pain. So sometimes people think, oh, this person here, he has a company and he has a team. Well, if I help the company, he'll be happy. Or if I help the team, he'll be happy. Human nature doesn't work that way at all. You have to help that person in front of your face. So they usually have an immediate pain. And if they've booked a meeting with you and brought it up, it may fall within your wheelhouse to fix. I may say, well, if you do this and do this, that will fix a lot of those issues. And someone says, Troy, you shouldn't do that because you're giving out free advice. I said, look, if they're serious about their business and they do what they tell them to do and it fixes their problem, they'll look around saying, wow, there are 22 other problems only Troy can fix. And then they'll hire you, Mm-hmm. And if they don't hire you because they can't afford you, you've done your good deed for the week. You put out good energy in the universe. And the third thing is that's one way to get recommendations. And if someone recommends or introduces you to someone else, converting that into a sale is much easier. And so you have to use your kindness and ability to help others and be known as a trusted individual in order to receive work. And another thing too is all the spam. There is a lot of spam going on. Let me ask you, how many clients do you need a month? Like I literally on my high ticket thing, I need like one client a month because it's residual and it compounds on top of each other. I'm not trying to close, 2 or 3 deals every single week. My company couldn't handle that, because there's a process of obtaining the client and then there's a process of serving the client, and it's much easier to make money on current clients than try to replace them with new ones. It always amazes me that people want volume. A lot of times they can just figure out if they pinpoint who they need to talk to and why, and engage with those people, build the network, it's really not that hard. You have to have a little personality and be a little human and just there to help individuals. And if I can't help them, what I'm going to do is usually if they come to me, they have like 1 of 5 problems, right? And maybe 3 of them I could fix. 2 of them, maybe not, who knows? Sometimes it's a communication issue. Sometimes they have an email issue. I could tell that they have an email issue and it's not a LinkedIn issue. Well, I'm not an email person. I'll send that to my email partner, so I will give this potential client to someone else. And someone may say, that's awful, Troy. Why would you do that? Because there's reciprocation. That person will either send me a client or that person will find out, okay, now he's ready to do some LinkedIn stuff. And then we can share the client. And that happens plenty of times where I'm doing my part and you have other strategy partners that do what they do well, that you trust them. And you're not just going to hand off people to anyone. And so you really need to figure out, how do I solve this person's problem within a very short amount of time, And as far as the people that are sending out, hey, here's a free PDF and here's my booking link without really asking you for it. I hate to tell you that, but that's spam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you don't want to be that creepy person. And, just like you said, it's about the relationship. And you don't want people trying to get to third base before, you've even asked me my name. And
oh, yeah, that would be an awful relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. And if they're like, yeah, I don't know who you are, let's do some business. That person is pretty crazy. Why would you want to do business with that person? Right. You have to pick your clients well. And that's another thing. Not everyone is a good client for you.
Correct. Just like you mentioned, like they may have some other problem. And I think what entrepreneurs kind of fall into that trap of feeling like they have to help everyone with every single problem. And, you have to think, is this a good fit for my business? Does this fall into this high ticket offer that I have? Is this person, can they benefit? Can I deliver a transformation or solve a big problem for this person? And so if you could give some people, kind of some solid tips, like let's say, okay, I have this high ticket offer. Let's first define like what high ticket is. And then let's talk about like someone may be thinking, I haven't been on LinkedIn in like years, or I log on every now and again. So let's talk about like how to get reconnected with people. Mm-hmm. So, what is a high ticket offer? How do I get reconnected on the platform? And probably maybe one kind of initial type of step they may want to take. And you've mentioned, a few things along the way, but, this way we can kind of put it into perspective for people.
Yeah, I'll put it in better context for you. High ticket offer is a term people use and it can mean a lot of different things. There's 2 different types of high ticket offers.
Are you trying to turn your expertise into an online coaching business that replaces your 9-to-5 income? If so, tell me if this sounds familiar. You took a coaching certification class, but still don't know how to develop a coaching business or get clients. You bought a course, only to never implement what you learned, or worse, you still don't know where to start. Or maybe you're struggling to piece together a bunch of free information you find online, hoping and praying for results, only to still be confused. The key to earning revenue in your online coaching business is having a process to get the right people contacting you about enrolling in your programs and services. You also need a coaching offer that gets results for your clients in addition to you being able to charge a premium price for your services. So if you need help putting these pieces together, my name is Michelle Davis, and I am the host of the Boss Experience podcast, in addition to being a phenomenal business coach. And I created a free short video explaining where to begin when it comes to starting an online coaching business that replaces your 9-to-5 income. Just go to CEOBlueprintacademy.com to get instant access now. That's CEOBlueprintacademy.com. Okay, back to the show.
For LinkedIn, if it's residual, I count it as $1,000 and above per month, right? So when I say residual, if I have a client that pays $1,000 per month, they're paying every single month $1,000, right? Anything under that, I don't really consider high ticket. It can also be larger projects, IT projects, $50K, $102K, $200,000 or whatever. Those are also high ticket. So that way you can get less volume, but better clients, and then that works out really well. You also have to have the process of vetting the client. So a lot of people are not qualified for me, for example. I require someone that's going to be personable and help that individual. I require their audience to exist on LinkedIn in active form, a portion of them anyway. And I require them to have the ability to actually close a deal when they need to. And if they don't meet those 3 criteria, they're just not a good fit for me. They may be a fit for one of my other programs. So that's what a high ticket offer is.
And I'm glad you said that, I'm glad you defined it in that way, because a lot of people think that high ticket, I have to be a coach to have high ticket. I have to be a consultant to have high ticket, and high ticket can be any service-based business can have a high ticket offer.
Sure. Yeah. It's definitely true. Or you think about the minimum $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is, right? And you have to set it up. So you may charge $3,000 for the first month and $1,000 per month after, right? So say you get one client a month, because it's easy math, right? That means if you start your business in 5 months, you're getting 5,000, but you have to add 2 on each month because it's a 3,000 the first month. You're doing pretty well. So that means you're probably having a $10,000 per month after having a 4th or 5th month. So you can ramp up really quickly and get to that $10,000 mark within 5 months if you're set up properly. If your services do what you need to do and you're doing the things that you have to do in order to make that goal. Some people want to get to $100,000 a month and all that stuff, but there's different levels there's different ways to get to those different portions that you want. But you have to really think about how I'm going to keep my client happy, but what am I not willing to do? And so I was contemplating to help with the sales of another client. And I stopped myself. I said, Troy, what are you doing? Stick to what you're good at. Just, because he has this problem. I said, well, if he has a sales problem, he needs to get a sales solution. I said, I'm a LinkedIn solution that can get him the meetings and get him set up for that. But I'm not going to continue that relationship. That's a very personalized thing. And so a lot of entrepreneurs fall in the trap of do all, be all. And that's the wrong thing. You have to specialize in what you're doing. And then once you have that client, there may be some ancillaries that can support. You're asking, how can they be set up properly?
Yeah. Like, if, now that I've launched this offer, I created this offer. I think I have this winning high ticket offer. Mm-hmm. Like, how do I how do I step back into the LinkedIn platform? I kind of log on every now and
Right.
again. And,
Well, let's talk about the offer first. A lot of people have this offer and they do all the polish and all this other stuff. You don't have to do that. To be honest with you, you don't even have to define your offer fully. You have to figure out what components I'm going to do with this offer and pick up a client that you can work with, and you work with them maybe at a lower rate or whatever. And then by working with that client, you can fulfill like, you know what? This is the direction we should go. And oh, this is the type of thing that they really need. And you can kind of home in on those things. So people always think they have to have everything complete. I did a pilot program off a Google sheet with big words, and it had nothing on it. It was like 2-page Google sheet, wasn't designed, giant words on it. And it was a pilot program. So you have to have something that you can create and just do it. You don't want to spend months and months figuring it out and all that stuff, because a lot of these services can be tweaked to your individual person. Now, as far as LinkedIn is concerned, it's important. It's extremely important to figure out what you look like, how you feel, your brand, and all those things. And it always starts with your LinkedIn profile. Mm-hmm. And people saying, well, my profile looks good. I said, well, there's a couple elements that are important. LinkedIn is 70% visual. So when they go to your page, it has to be pleasing and it has to have a flow. Right. So they have different areas on LinkedIn, like featured section, your banner, your little picture, your ability to do a little video within your picture area, a little sound bite. And then it has to, not just be visual. It has to tell a story, and that story has to support your brand, and then after that, you want to make sure it's SEO compliant. That sounds like a lot of stuff, right? Well, it is. I charge quite a bit to redo profiles, but Google has searched the entirety of LinkedIn and had their own search too. So you want to be SEO optimized on both. For example, LinkedIn tends to want to, how do you say it? They tend to want to match you with people like you, and that's not really what you want to do when you're doing high ticket services. You want to match with people that need you. Mm-hmm. And so there's a certain way to write that. And as far as the story is concerned, they say, well, a lot of people don't see the about section. I said, well, if they like your visual and they like your titles and that stuff, the people that do dig into your about section and your jobs and on those type of things, those are the buyers. And so you have to concentrate on that. You're building kind of a little funnel right there. Mm-hmm. And what is your story? And you have to think, we're here in America. Well, I don't know who else views this, but we're known for the land of opportunity, right? And so what we like are things like reality shows, because they started from nothing and then now they're doing something great. It's like I was living in my car and now I'm making $1 million. And they want to know that story. How did that happen? And how do I see myself in that story? Not myself, but the other person. And so how you write things really addresses those other individuals. And you put personal things in there. And it's almost like sometimes you want to show the scars, but you don't want to show the wounds. So you have to have a balance on what you're doing. I tell them I'm a single father. I tell them I was in the United States Army. I'm telling them I'm an IT nerd, and I tell them I was a terrible dater. I put that stuff in there and I tell a story around that. And then how I was achieving some level of success. And they look at that like, you know what? If he can do that, I'm sure that I can do it as well. They want to have that personal connection with you as a human. And so that really, really helps. So your profile is the first thing that you really have to do.
And they also want to see themselves in you too, right? They want to see that they can accomplish what you can accomplish. If you sound too perfect and you have no flaws, you have no scars, I think that says a lot too. And there's a lot of people who sound too perfect. Like they woke up and now they're just, 7-figure coach.
Yeah, their hair is like done already. Like when I woke up like this, Yeah. But it's absolutely true. You have to create your profile where it promotes two-way traffic. For example, if you send a connection request, there's a 50% chance they'll look at your profile. And so what you need to do is bump up the possibility of success for every little step, because all the money you make is not in every single thing that comes. A lot of stuff falls in the cracks. So you just have to capture one. So you have to boost the possibility of success on every step that you're doing. So you're having all these connections, and it's like you have a net, and your profile is one of these nets that are going to capture, kind of the conversation or the individual that you want to engage with. I'll give you another thing too is, connections are not always the only thing. Content is a major thing as well. There's strategies around that. And there's webinars, that link, like LinkedIn events. There's all these different kind of networking sort of things in there. And, for connecting anyway, another strategy would be, well, maybe I don't send them a connection request. Maybe I follow them first. Maybe I engage with, say, 2 of their posts, they reply back. And then maybe the next week I send an invite. So you have to think about that. Old school sales say you need X amount of touch points, 14, 20, whatever it is a range depending on who you ask, right? And it's kind of true. But what touch points, what it doesn't mean is spam them, So you don't want to spam like 15 direct messages or emails to them. That's not what the touch points mean. That means literally, how can I touch them in different areas where, in this media or that conversation where you end up being like, hey, I think I know this guy and maybe I should connect with him, or maybe I should talk to him. You want to be in the back of their mind somehow, and you want to almost be God sent, if you will. And one way to do that is, well, maybe start by following that person. That's a touch point. They have a great post. Look at the post, another touch point. Like the post, another touch point. Write a thoughtful comment on there. Have that person will reply back. Do that twice. You already have 10 touch points. You got to think about it. You have 10 touch points within 2 weeks. And in your invite, you might want to say something like, hey, John, I really liked your post when you talked about A, B, and C. If you think it's worth connecting, feel free. Your chances of being connected have risen from 15 to 20%, all the way up to like 85%. And you not only increase the possibility of being connected with that person, you've already moved that relationship down the line, and then it's possible to extend that conversation. So you connect with the person. What do you do after that point? Well, he already likes you, connected with you. You had several conversations with him. You send a welcome video, like I mentioned, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. You don't talk about you. And he says, yeah, I think I want to talk to this guy. And they send me the booking link and we have the meeting, and we go from there. Because at the end of the day, if you have a steady pattern or day-to-day process, and that's the other thing that you're talking about, how do we create some of these processes in order to do that? I have a document for a day-to-day process. You just have to pick what is important for your business for that day. Mm-hmm. By creating a day-to-day process, you can get in and out of LinkedIn. So that's the main problem that a lot of people have. They're all over LinkedIn. They're all over LinkedIn, and they're doing this and this for many hours at a time. I'm sorry to tell you, you have a business to run. You cannot be on LinkedIn. I can be on LinkedIn every day, but that's my business, right? But you can't be on LinkedIn all day. You got to get in there and get out. And the usual time span is like, what is reasonable in a day? It's about an hour. Let me run my work in about an hour. That way I can reply to my messages. I can engage in my posts. I can figure out, I can strategize around who I need to talk to. And sometimes when you engage in other people's posts, some people don't even want to connect. They may have a different strategy. They may say, this guy has a stellar audience and he's not a direct competitor, but his audience may be a potential client, right? So let me engage with their audience. So it really depends on your strategy and on how you're doing things. But if you create a process that you do day in, day out, your life becomes a lot more simple. I'll give you an example. Mondays, I don't do my day-to-day process is welcome videos and check my notifications. That's it. Tuesday, I go back to my LinkedIn direct messages. I might do some welcome videos as well and then engage. People don't realize that if you do a really good welcome video, once they connect with you and you're not really asking for anything and you put the onus on them and your profile's stellar, the chances of 1/3 of the people who see the video book a meeting. I can get 35, 45 meetings in a week. Of course, that's insane. So I cut everything down and I'm like, I stopped connecting with people and I slowed stuff down because I can't handle more than 20 maybe, and because I have other, business stuff I have to attend to.
So those are the child.
Oh yeah. I have a 5-year-old. Yeah. So at 2:00, I got to go to the bus stop and stuff, Got a little remote control car she wants. She's like a little boy. So in the kitchen area, we have a little track set up, like a pseudo track with the chairs and stuff. And I'm teaching her how to do the remote control. You have to spend time with the family and the balance of all that kind of stuff too.
And the key thing there is strategy. And a lot of people, they just really just kind of hop in, whether it's hopping into your business, they see, the shiny object, they see things online, they try and put the pieces together that way. And the key is strategy. So let's switch gears now. And, you're saying you're the not so boring LinkedIn guy. You are the LinkedIn resource. So can you share a little bit about what it is, like what exactly do you do and how people can find you?
Yeah. So, they can just type my name in. It's Troy Hipolito. It's Hipolito, and that's my dad's fault. He's Asian. So, my father's Filipino and my mother's from Switzerland. So when I had the IT company, I was known as the number one Swissipino game designer in the world. Right?
Swissipino.
Yeah, I was the number one Swissipino game designer. And that was literally my pickup line at the bars, So, but it didn't translate well on LinkedIn because they wouldn't, So I did the not so boring LinkedIn guide to distinguish myself from other people. So one thing I do suggest is when you're creating your brand, you need to have a distinguishing factor that separates you from other people that do what you do, So that's really the first thing. So you have to establish that kind of brand and that vibe because you don't want to say, who is that person? And then you're not coming up. So you have to kind of stand out, on what you do. And then what was the second thing that you wanted me to talk about?
Just what is it you do when you work with your clients? Like, how do you get them to the point of, not getting any connections at all to having a steady flow of connections using LinkedIn, and then how people can find you if they'd like to look you up after, just based on seeing this podcast episode or whether they're watching on YouTube or listening on their favorite podcast.
So they
platform.
can find me on LinkedIn, just first name, last name, and I'll show up and the picture looks like me, You just connect and say, hey, I saw you on the show, and I'll say, oh, okay, I'll accept that, as long as you don't look like you're a spammer, then I'll be okay with that.
And don't send any sales messages.
Yeah. Got a deal for you, But in order to set things up, profile is definitely the first thing that you want to do. Once you establish your profile, you can help with your targeting. And this is what we do for our clients. We do a top to bottom. And then we actually help them with their Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator is an additional LinkedIn tool that helps you search. We help you find your ideal prospect in that way. And then we can break that up into sub searches that can fit different campaigns. And then you want to create, we help them create campaigns and initial messaging. And that last thing is kind of what we talked about is the day-to-day process. Figure out what you're doing in that day-to-day in order to move forward. And we even have a linked CRM that allows you to do some things without you doing everything, kind of fills in the gaps. What we don't do is we don't spam. We don't send message after message. We don't stack messages and things like that, but we create a strategy for you. For example, say you have this IT business, right? And a lot of the clients will accept your invite, but they just don't pay attention to the direct messages, right? They just don't pay attention to those type of things. It doesn't exist for them. Well, that just means that they're traditional email people. So in that particular case, we may have a strategy to pull the data off of LinkedIn once you connect and send them a message saying, hey, not everyone checks these messages, so I'll just shoot you an email, and then you run it off of that to email. That might be one strategy. Another one might be video funnels, another one might be the welcome videos that I've mentioned, and doing a few other things to make sure you're following up, and then tying that to your CRM, and all that sort of stuff. But those type of processes we help build. We have a LinkedIn accelerator program for those type of clients, and it works really well. Again, if they meet the criteria, if they're personable and are there to help that individual, if their audience exists in active form on LinkedIn, and the third is they can close a deal when it's appropriate.
Now, do you also help people? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you also help people with their messaging in terms of because I think some people get so caught up on, well, what do I say? I heard you're not supposed to say this on LinkedIn, or I have to keep it professional, but I don't know what that is. And they end up not posting at all and not making, strategic connections at all. So do you also help your clients?
I definitely help. I have services that does content. Or does the messaging for their outreach. So they're going to, so we can figure out what are the typical things that you want to say, but I base those on the client's personality. So say, for example, if you were a client, I would have you fill an intake document out, right? And then I would scan the intake document. I may ask you some uncomfortable questions, and just so I understand what makes you tick. And then that will allow me to write the profile. Once that profile is written well, you pretty much know what your target market is because it's very solid. Like, this is who I am. This is who I serve. This is how I do stuff. And then I take the step to reach out on Sales Navigator to figure out those individual prospects. So it is a step-by-step process. I was just telling you a short version. But writing content and writing messages that not just appropriate for LinkedIn, but really is appropriate to your personality. They want to know that they're dealing with a person. The messages, aren't always, they're not canned. They're kind of authentic. There's something that you would say. For example, all my connection messages may be different based on the situation, but I do have some staple messages. And one talks about, thanks for checking me out in the land of LinkedIn, and I tell them that, but just to let you know, I'm pretty nerdy, and but it can definitely come in handy. I said, if not, it's okay. I don't have feelings anyway, right? I get like a 50% conversion on that mess. I'm just giving you a synopsis. It's not exact wording. But they're like this.
And
this
that's why you're not the not so boring LinkedIn guy, right?
Yeah, there's he has a little personality in this guy. Even on my profile, there is a identify gender on there now, like the he, she thing, him, they, all that stuff. And I said, what do I identify as, right? And I said, 5'6", identify as 6'5" on the thing. Because I'm actually 5'7", maybe 5'8" with the hair, but it wouldn't make sense. So I say 5'6", identify as 6'5", and the people who read it and catch it, it's a talking point. So have points of reference to make someone laugh, and you don't want to be too far off or inappropriate, but let them know that you're a person and you have a little personality, and that you could be that person that we can go out and have a beer with. And then you would feel safe to have a conversation and that sort of. That's the vibe that you really want to get out there. So we help that with a lot of clients, and some clients we actually write content for, and you name it. So everything comes at a cost. So it's either time or cost. People say, "Oh, that's a lot of money." I said, "How much is a client worth? What's the lifetime value of a client?" I said, "Then this is not a lot of money at all. It's not." So I think that there's the people that want to do everything themselves. And that's another issue. I'm very good at a lot of stuff. I'm very good at graphics, programming, project management, all this LinkedIn stuff. But I have a limited amount of time. And so each of those are hats that you have to wear. And your job when you're running a business is to reduce the amount of hats, not increase. Because that way you can concentrate on those important things that only you are good at. And so there's other business processes that we help out with is like, look, I need a VA to do this, but then I need to train them. How do I train them? So you create an SOP, and I show them how to create a service operating procedure. That's what SOP means. It's basically a training manual. So some of these tasks that can be repeatable, you want to hand out, to that, because if not, do you want to have 7 jobs and only get paid for one? No. And then that will actually limit the amount of money you can make. You want to get past that ceiling. So you need to distribute your systems in a way where your life gets easier. So you might have to take along a lot of things at first so you understand it, and you start breaking up those pieces. You're like, oh, I see it. Oh, this data process only takes an hour. Okay. But part of these things, maybe I don't need to do, maybe a few of them, they can flag me on what's the important stuff, and I can jump on that, What is my content development? How do I reduce the time and cost for that and create content that's really ideal for my personality? And there's all these tricks to the trade. Of course, things do cost money, or you're going to do it yourself, but it's very difficult to do all these things well. I'm an award-winning designer, graphic designer for website designs 2 years in a row in Atlanta a number of years ago, right? Do you think I'm going to compete with another designer that does this 50 hours a week? There's no way. Mm-hmm. So it's not about me. It's about what do we need to do to serve the client? How do I take my ego out of it and produce something really, really helpful, that achieves your goals and stuff like that. So those are a lot of business things, and they go along with everything LinkedIn. Sorry, I talk a lot.
Yeah. So, and I think that what ends up happening with a lot of entrepreneurs is they will try and wear all of the hats. They don't want to invest or, in themselves, and they end up, being a slave to their business where they can't step away. And it's really
I prefer the term flea market. And you don't want to be a flea market. A flea market got a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything, and you got to specialize. So just a quick recap, and then I want you to tell people where they can find, you talked about where they can find you. So I just want to have a last parting word. So just to recap, we talked about strategy. We talked about not being that bad date. No one wants to be on a date with someone who only talks about themselves and never asks anything about you. If you've ever been on that kind of date, you don't want to be that kind of business owner where you're just spamming people. We also talked about the need for strategy, planning your time out, knowing what you're going to do every day on the platform, and really taking the time to, really develop your profile and develop that presence on LinkedIn. And that presence doesn't mean you're spending 2, 3, 4 hours on the platform. Decide how much time you have and what you need to do, and be very strategic about your time. Also, just because you're spending time on LinkedIn doesn't mean you have to let go of Instagram or Facebook if you feel like you want to spend your time there as well. And LinkedIn with billions is it millions or billions of users?
Last about 2 years ago was 700 million. So I don't know how much it is now, but it's a lot.
So there's too many people on the platform for you to miss out on the opportunity to be on LinkedIn on a consistent basis. Because with 700 million people, you have to ask yourself, how many connections am I missing out on? How am I missing out on growing my business by using the platform? So I just want to thank you so much, Troy, for joining me. And I just want to give another quick note about Troy, how we even came to meet. It was from one of his video messages, because, that's
you like that, huh?
Yeah, that's another thing too. When people reach out and they try and make connections, it's not about making a sale. It's about how can we partner on something? Is there some mutual benefit there? In addition to is really just exploring who this person is. Who is this new connection? How can I be of service to them? How can they be of service to me in any way?
That's a very good point. Mm-hmm. I always say, come from a place of service.
Right. Yes. And that's what I liked about Troy. And that's why he's on my podcast in this episode, because I liked his professionalism. I thought he was, it was very tasteful. And so it was actually refreshing because you get used to deleting all the annoying DM
all the work
messages.
of deleting.
Yeah, the annoying sales pitches. You don't even know who I am or my business. So why are you sending me this sales pitch? And what is your meeting? And it wasn't a meeting, and we didn't meet. And it wasn't a meeting about like, oh, buy my stuff. Like a hustler, buy my stuff. and I could appreciate that. So I want to just thank you for, coming on, sharing your knowledge about the LinkedIn platform. If you had like one thing to tell people, one final kind of phrase or statement to make to the audience, what would that be?
Oh, just be authentic.
Mm-hmm. Be authentic. Don't try and be anyone else other than you.
Be you. Be the best you, the best version of you.
Awesome.
That's it.
So Troy Hipolito is available on LinkedIn. You can search him using his name.
Oh, yeah. You can also look at my website. I have a little blue button. So if you want a 15-minute chat, go to thetroyagency.com, and there will be a little blue button there. Pick the 15-minute option. Always open for a conversation.
And you never know. You may get, a little tip that can help propel you, forward just a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of times you're just stuck somewhere. They just need some help saying, "Oh, I was doing this thing. This thing's not working," and they just need a coach or a specialist or whatever. And to believe it or not, although I'm a consultant and a coach, I got coaches, so it's okay. It's really common for coaches to have coaches. And people don't know that. And I said, yeah, we hire, we support the community, and we don't know everything. We're very specialized in what we're doing, but everyone needs help. You just got to work with good people, that really know what they're doing in order to get where you need to go.
And I've had coaches over the years. I talk about that all the time in my previous episodes. You don't want to stifle yourself with just your knowledge. You have to seek out another coach. You have to seek out another professional that can take you to a different level, something that, somewhere where you're not equipped yet because you don't have that knowledge. And so the only way to get that knowledge to take you to whatever that next level is or to propel you forward is to hire a coach. So with that being said, thank you, Troy, for stopping by to share your wisdom with the audience. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Boss Experience podcast. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Did you know that more than half of Americans have listened to a podcast episode at least once? So if you have a product or service that needs to reach an online audience, advertising on a podcast like The Boss Experience is a great way to get in front of your ideal customer. When you secure an advertising slot on an episode, the Boss Experience podcast listeners get to hear about your business every time someone tunes into that episode. So what are you waiting for? Visit bit.ly/podcast episode sponsor to get started. Now back to the episode.
Thank you for tuning in to the Boss Experience podcast. Don't forget to leave a review for this episode and tune in next time.